Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast edition of Rosen Sports Monday on this chilly Monday, post-Vikings mortem, post-Vikings debacle against the Baltimore Ravens yesterday. First of all, I want to thank our sponsors, Stretch Lab. We'll talk about them a little bit later, and Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. My guest today, I'm starting to laugh already. I have the pleasure of working with him 3 afternoons a week. I have been for, 13, 14 years. Dan Cole, the Common Man, is here. I can't believe it. You're on the other side of the mic today. My goodness, thanks for stopping over.
Well, it's good to be here. It's
I mean,
a nice place. I feel like I'm in Brainerd.
No, I used to call on Common, and we'll tell the story right away. I have no agenda here. We're just going to rattle off a whole bunch of stuff. But Common used to be my backup for Rosen Sports Monday, for Rosen Sports Sunday, when I was my guest at the last minute couldn't make it in, and this was a live show. I mean, at that time, and I would put the bat signal out for Common, and you never disappointed. You always came in because you loved the airtime.
I'd get the call 8:30, 9 o'clock, and you helped me out. And sure enough, I hop in the car, and I was there. It's the kind of guy I am. I give and give and give, so I'm about to give out.
Yes, absolutely. Well, there's a ton to talk about. We'll get to the game in a minute, and we can talk about your kiddies as well. But I think for people who I don't know anyone who doesn't know who you are or hasn't probably listened at one point or another to your show. They may have turned it off at times, but that's a prerogative as well. But I'm not even quite sure where did the Common Man name come from? What was the origination of it, other than Stan Cole?
1993.
Okay,
make that 1994. 1994. I started at the Fan in 1993 part time. 1994, they gave me a full time talk show. They said, we'll give you 2 weeks and see how it goes. It went okay. And they said, it's all yours. At the time, the air staff included a show, Dave and Shave, Dave Huffman and Randy Shave.
The late, great Dave Huffman.
The afternoon show was Dan Barrero and Chad Hartman. Mm-hmm. So I went on the air one evening and said, I was doing 6 to 9 at night. And I said, oh, sure, I'm not a former football player like Huffman. Oh, sure, I'm not a sports anchor like Shaver. Oh, sure, I'm not a play-by-play guy like Hartman. Oh, sure, I'm not a columnist like Barrero. I'm just a guy like you off the streets talking sports. Yeah. Go to break. Bo Mitchell, who was my producer at the time, came in and during the break and said, you're just a common man, aren't you? So I went on the air and I just said, I'm just a common man. I didn't call myself common. I just said, I'm a common man just like you listening. Right. And all of a sudden, people started calling and going, hey, Common Man, hey, Common man, and it stuck. Yeah, so it's not a great story, but that's the story.
But this is how these things happen organically, as they say. I mean, it just came out of the blue, and it's stuck, and it's worked for you for how many years now? My goodness.
13, 14. 6, 7 years, something like that. Yeah. 6, 7 decades since I got a full-time job in 1994, and so here we are in 2025 is 31 years, 41 years.
And we've
51.
worked together since, 99, 98?
I think it was,
the old building.
In the old building.
Xerxes Avenue.
First made your acquaintance when you were working at WCCO Television.
That's a great story.
I was going to Brown Institute, the now defunct Brown Institute. By the way, Alec Lewis of the Athletic.
Yeah.
When we play in the open of my show, he's the clown from Brown. He thought it was the Brown Ivy League school. Talk about your preposterous statements.
He thought you went to an Ivy League school?
I looked it up. Brown University is like the 13th best university in the country, ranked.
Right.
And he thought I went there. But I was going to Brown Institute, and they helped you find part-time jobs if you wanted.
Oh, I remember. I almost went there.
Lo and behold, they gave me a part-time job at WCCO Television, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, mopping floors, buffing and waxing floors, and emptying trash cans. And of course, I took the job, and I would go to WCCO those 3 nights out of the week, and I would see you and Pat Miles and Dave Moore and everybody else, and Bud Kraling and all the legendary people of CCO, and I'd go up and I'd watch you guys do your show. So yeah, that's when I first met you. I mean, we didn't really know each other. Just, it wasn't even a formal introduction or anything, but that's where I first made you.
That's where you tell the story that you'd see me during the summertime, wearing shorts and flip-flops, and I'd wear my sport coat for the opening of the show, and then I'd disappear.
My entire image of all you guys just went poof, because back then they would do the wide shot of the 2 anchors, news anchors,
right,
and then weather guy and you. And so they do the wide shot, and then they would close at the beginning, and then they close into the 2 anchors. Well, as soon as it would close in, you and Kraling would get up and leave.
Sure.
And you're
You didn't have to
wearing
stay there.
a shirt, tie, and a sport coat, and then you're wearing shorts and flip-flops underneath. And I was like,
Fooled them
you
every
gotta be
time.
kidding. You fooled them every time.
Well, getting back to Brown Institute, getting you a job there, that's not exactly a road to broadcasting if you mopping floors. I mean, you got your foot in the door,
Right.
which is what I always tell people.
It was they had all kinds of different jobs. Maybe at a restaurant or something. They just helped you find a job if you were looking for part-time work. So it didn't even have to
Understand.
necessarily be in the media.
Okay.
I just happened to get the one at WCCO TV. It could have been at a car lot or anywhere.
Right.
They would just they would assist you because if you're a student and you're paying the tuition, you don't have work and you need the money. So they just helped you find work while you were going to school. So it was pretty cool.
How long did you stay there?
Well, the course was 10 months. So I
Okay.
was at CCO TV for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, something like that.
There's a lot of people, big names that went to Brown Institute. It was kind of the place to go. I mean, I remember thinking, should I go to the U and hang out there for a while? And I was working at WCCO, or I remember taking a tour of Brown Institute. It wasn't over off Lake Street or
Yeah,
something?
off of Lake Street, absolutely. That's the original
And that was kind of the place to be. And there's a lot of big names that
I
came
think
out of
Tommy
there.
Bernard went there. I'm pretty sure. I know
Yeah.
Lee Valsvik did. You know, it's
Right.
funny. Lee Valsvik, who is in the PAVIC like you, I'm not. in
Havoc
it,
Hall
but
of Fame, by the way.
That's Broadcasters Hall of Fame. I'm not in there, but I guess I'm not deserving. But anyway, Lee is in there now, and Lee was one of my classmates. There were 12 of us in my class, graduating class of 1981, and Lee was in my class. And lo and behold, we ended up working at iHeart together. So yeah, we're the only two from that class that are still in the radio business that I'm aware of.
That's crazy. That really is. But you tell the story many times on the air about how many stations you've worked for or programmed, and it's not exactly a linear road to a successful life in radio because it's tough. It's a tough business, and it mostly chews up and spits people out, and they last a few years. It's like a ball player that maybe makes single A, makes it to double A, and then goes, I got to make a living. I'm making $180 a day or something a month or whatever it is. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, that's exactly. It was. You like to say you never spent a day in the minors. You
Right.
started, and a lot of people did. Even at at our radio station at KFAN, most of the people on air didn't spend any time in small market radio. I started in Great Falls, Montana, went to Ottumwa, Iowa. Then I went to Forest Lake, the station here in town, and went to Forest Lake. Then I went to a station that was up in Cambridge. From Cambridge, I went to Kemmer, Wyoming, small little town in the southwest corner of the state. Went down to Huntsville, Texas. Then I kind of backtracked. Went back to Kemmer, back to Cambridge, back to Forest Lake, and then to the Fan. That was about a 10-year radio journey. And it's like that old WKRP song, Town to Town, Up and Down the Dial, right? From the old television show. And you're right. Most people you find would stay in it for maybe 2 years and then get out. Most people, because they would go, the idea of working on the radio is fun and it's exciting, but you're stuck in a small town. There's not a lot of money and you're just kind of spinning your wheels and you get frustrated and you leave. But it wasn't necessarily that I loved radio. It was the idea. I just didn't think it was work. I thought this is fun. Instead of actually mopping floors or parking cars and pumping gas in San Jose, instead I was talking on the radio. So it didn't even matter. I didn't care about the money. I wasn't in it for the money at the time. It was just fun it was just better than working.
The fun, and you're doing what you like to do. That's what kept you going, because you really didn't need a lot of money
Not back then. Just be able to, pay your rent, have something to eat, and have a 6-pack of beer. That's all I needed.
And you did have
or 12, a case of beer.
Well, yeah, and that's part of. The 70s. I was already locked into going to CCO and putting my coat and tie on and hanging out with the big boys at WCCO, and I was just a little guy just trying to learn from the best in the business. You were doing a whole different kind of lifestyle.
I was a Haight-Ashbury guy. I call my Haight-Ashbury days. I think most people are familiar. The corner of Haight and Ashbury in San Francisco, where the hippie generation kind of blossomed when first it was created. So I call it my Haight-Ashbury days. But yeah, me and my buddies, we like to party, and then I was in that lifestyle for a long time. It was fun, we enjoyed it. After a while, I just finally said, I'm getting sick and tired of being sick and tired, partying all the time. And so I
wake up not feeling great.
Yeah. And I just kept signing the radio station on 6 a.m. with a hangover. Got to be really old. Got old in a hurry. Of course, a hurry was about 10 years.
But it would have been easy to give up and just go, I'm done with this. You've talked about, again, I'm not saying anything that you haven't talked about on the air. You dropped out of high school.
Yeah.
All this other, so the traditional ways, like your sons are getting their education, getting good jobs, all that kind of stuff, none of that existed.
Yeah, not for me. Well, it's Yeah, I enjoyed the work. Because it wasn't really work to me, and that's why I continued to do it. But yeah, you had to, if you were, I remember being at Brown every day, at least once a day, if not 2 or 3 times, the instructors would always remind you, you ain't going to make any money in this business, at least not originally, because you just don't. You go to small towns, but I loved it. I enjoyed it.
So it didn't frighten you off at all, the thinking, man, how am I ever going to make a living at this? Or
I was about to get out of the business. When I went back to Kemmer in 1989, 90,
okay.
It was getting kind of old. And I wasn't really going anywhere. I still enjoyed it, but there was nothing much going on. My brother, Alex, who you know very well,
right,
was a touring stand-up comedian in the college circuit, and he needed someone to travel with him. So I resigned from my job in Wyoming and then traveled with him all fall and all winter in 1990 in the comedy circuit. Well, then when I got back, summer came and there's no college, so he was not doing the circuit, so I was out of work. So then I just applied for a part-time job. And I got it in Cambridge, and push came to shove. Then I ended up in Forest Lake, and I got back into the radio business. But I wasn't, making it a concerted effort to get out of the business. But I was at least taking a break from it for a while.
We also branched off a little bit. You've talked about doing a little sports play-by-play. Right?
I did a lot of that back in the day. I did that. That's what I was doing in Forest Lake and in Wyoming, in Kemmer.
Did you enjoy that?
I did loved it. I did all kinds of high school play-by-play.
Yeah. Well, it's good stuff. Well, your brother Alex, as you mentioned, terrific actor. I remember seeing him a couple of different times in town here. And you have a bit of a thespian in you as well, because you did, and you used to try to encourage me to try to go on stage.
You've done some stand-up with us. Well, yeah,
I've done stand-up, but
the news director in Wyoming, the late Ken Rand, started when I first got there to Wyoming. This was in 1983, fall of 83. I'd been fired from 3 of the first 4 radio jobs I'd been to. So I went to Wyoming. You'd go to these jobs sight unseen. These small little towns, they don't fly in for an interview. You just either accept the job over the phone and drive out there sight unseen and go work, or you don't. And so I took the job, and I told myself, if I get fired from this job, I'm done. That's 4 to 5 dentists surveyed recommend sugarless gum for the patients that chew gum. 4 to 5 program directors recommend I shouldn't be in the business. I'm out. But I got lucky because the general manager was a guy named Jimmy Ray Carroll, about twice my age. He was 50, I was 25. He was he used to box, and he used to work in George Foreman's camp. And that's when I was really into the fight game. So we hit it off really well. And the news director, the late Ken Rand, was starting a theater guild. So when I first got to town, he said, I'm doing a play. Do you want to be in it? I said, because my brother had been in one. I said, yeah, sure. I said, I'd give it a try. I said, but I just want a small part because I've never done it before. He said, okay. Next day, I'm walking into the radio station. He's walking out. He hands me one of those Samuel French scripts and goes, you're Mel. I go, okay. I look. Well, it's the lead role in the play. It's Mel Edison, Prisoner of 52nd Street.
That's a
or
big
52nd
play.
Avenue, is it? 52nd Street. It's a Jack Lemmon did the movie version of it. I'm the Jack Lemmon part. It's a 2-hour play. I'm on stage for an hour, 55 minutes.
How did you?
The first act is myself and my stage wife for the entire hour, just back and forth. And
you managed to memorize all the
I
lines.
I would 2-hour play. And that was still in my Haight-Ashbury days, but I loved it. There's nothing more enjoyable than being on stage. So I did that. Then I did another role. We did another play later, Arsenic and Old Lace. Cary Grant was in that one.
Sure.
And I played the Teddy Roosevelt part, which is interesting because the Mel Edison part in Prisoner of Second Avenue was a guy that was losing his mind. And Teddy Roosevelt had already lost his mind in Prisoner of Second Avenue. So I was typecast as somebody losing his mind. But I will tell you this. I enjoyed, after doing 2 different plays, I enjoyed Prisoner of Second Avenue better than Arsenic and Old Lace. Not because of the ego of being the star of the play, but when you're just a bit part, like the Teddy Roosevelt was just probably all told maybe 10 minutes of a 2-hour play, right? Just on the stage, off the stage, fluid parts. During rehearsals, you're just sitting there for 90 minutes waiting for all right, your turn. You go up, you do your thing, and you sit down. Whereas when you're the lead or one of the main characters, you're always on the stage during rehearsals and the play. So it's more fun that way.
If someone offered you something like that, is that intriguing enough? I mean, it sounds like you really enjoyed it. I mean, that you would think you would have had opportunities, Old Log Theater, whatever it might be, Chanhassen to.
Well, those people are professionals.
Well,
They're
I know,
really,
but still,
really
you know.
Good. I had someone approach me back in 2014 or 2015. He ran a small theater in town, wanted me to do a 2-person play, and I just didn't feel like I really wanted to do it at that time. But No, I love the theater. It's fun. It's really enjoyable. Live theater, just like comedy. It's
Right.
doing it as it's happening is so much fun. When I was doing the play, what was interesting was one of the shows, I don't know if it was our first, second, or third performance. We did 3 performances. All that work for 3 performances. One weekend got snowed out because Wyoming is really snowy. But we're in the play, and it's, like I say, in the first act, it's myself and my stage wife, right? And we're going through it, and I think it was my fault. I don't know for sure. Skipped like a page and a half of the script.
Oh my God.
And we both looked at each other and kind of realized it at the exact same time. It was like, uh-oh. So then you kind of look at each other. And then what we did was we ad-libbed, winging it,
Sure.
backtracked to where we were supposed to be. Actually ended up repeating a couple of lines, but the audience had no idea. But that was the one part where it was a little frightening because it's live. There's no like cut,
Right.
take 2.
Correct.
You just got to keep
I
rolling.
always wonder how many times that actually happens, even in a big Broadway show, where I'm sure.
I bet it occasionally happens.
Oh, it has to, and they're so professional that they pick it up and run. Because I have such admiration for live theater. That to me is at the top of my list because I don't understand how someone can get up there, not just memorize the lines, but emote the right, feelings and emotions that you have to capture
Playing
the
a
audience.
character, exactly
It's just
right, and never
astonishing.
dropping out of character. No,
So-
it is. It's, and that's how, when we do stand-up comedy as well. You've done a little bit with us. That's another one where, I think stand-up to me is the toughest because I think the audience is, if they don't laugh, then that's where the flop sweat comes in. At a play, they usually don't boo. And, if it's TV or radio, you're getting no reaction because, unless you're just getting it from a text
Live
message.
comedy is different.
Yeah, but live comedy is right there. And so it's hard to
So
do.
getting back to getting your foot in the door at KFAN, and that was back in the days. Let's see.
AM 1130, we were on the AM dial at the time.
God, that's right. AM radio. What were your responsibilities at first?
I was working at the Forest Lake radio station. I was doing the news and sports. This is 1990, 91.
Okay.
90, 91, 92, 93. So I was there about 4 years doing the news and sports. Carl Allen, the capable Carl Allen, we called him. He was the morning guy. So we got to know each other pretty well. He said to me one day, he goes, "Have you ever heard of KFAN radio before?" I said, "Never heard of it." This was 1993.
Mhm.
Okay. So KFAN is 2 years it's been on the air. I've never heard of it. He goes, "Listen to it today." So I tune in. I hear the Chad Burrow show. I get back to Forest Lake radio station the next morning. I look at Carl. I go, "You and I could do that." He goes, "I know." So we put a mock tape together, sent it to the radio station. Lo and behold, Mark Ginther, the program director at the time,
Mark.
and John Thomas, the general manager, called us and said, "We'd like to have an interview." At the time, they were looking for part-time weekend talk shows. They had their weekday lineup already set. They were doing like in the morning, they were almost doing an ESPN kind of a sports.
I remember
center.
the Sports Babe.
They were doing a sports center thing where they were doing from 6 until 9. They would do like whoever it was the late Dan Culhane for a while, where you do 20 minutes of local sports, 20 minutes of national sports, 20 minutes of local, just around the clock like a sports center. Then it was Dave and Shay from 9 until noon, and then it was Larry Fitzgerald Sr. and Eric Nelson from noon to 3, and then Chad Burrow 3 to 6. So they were looking for weekend help. They interviewed us, called us back a second time and said, "We're going to give you guys a month worth of weekends to see how it works." In the meantime, Chad Burrow wanted to part ways with their producer, their board op. They had, not their producer, but their board. They had a board op / update / sidekick guy along with a producer. So there was 2 people in the master control studio. They offered it to Carl. Carl didn't want to do it. I said, "I'll do it. $5 an hour." I would get there between 2 and 3 to write my sports update. I did 2 updates an hour, write new ones all the time. Then I would run the Chad Burrow show on the board from 3 to 6, and whoever was on the evenings from 6 until 9. And then I would also do then they changed the mornings to Bob Yates in the morning with Kenny Olson.
I got to work with Bob Yates. Yeah.
Then they had me doing sports in the morning. So for the longest time, I was there from 5 until 9 in the morning doing sports on the Bob Yates show 2 or 3 times an hour. Then I would leave for 5 hours, come back and work 2 until 9.
What you're describing sounds like the perfect life if you're a single man, a single person.
Gotta be single.
You had not met your lovely wife,
No.
Potato Helen, yet.
Well, I had, yes. We'd met at the Forest Lake radio station.
Okay.
And we were dating, but no, that was just the job I had. It was what I had to do.
Did you figure out how to make that work in a hurry? I mean, as you continued on your road, thinking, well, I remember I'm going to do the same thing at WCCO. I really wasn't dating a lot, and this was my life, 7 days a week. But at some point, you have to be a grown up, and you go, well, this might be the one. and I have to figure out how to make this work.
Oh, yeah, there was no problem with that at all.
Okay, that's good.
There was none whatsoever. She knew this is what I wanted to do,
Yep.
and it worked out for us.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Hey, let's take a break. I'm going to come back and talk about what else makes the common man the common man. But first, we want to hear from our sponsors, wonderful sponsors, Stretch Lab and Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Hey, Rosie here for Stretch Labs. I've been talking about them for months now, and it's part of my regular exercise routine. They're located throughout the Twin Cities, and no matter who you sign up for, they have great stretch practitioners that will work with you. They are great at stretching out your hips, your back, your neck, whatever might be aching you, but more importantly, being proactive about your overall health. They understand how your body works and what you need, no matter what your age, really no matter what the shape you're in, but understand how important stretching is. Black Friday right now will offer the best pricing on bundle packages of stretches. Get anywhere from 3 to 20 sessions at a discounted rate. Hey, it also makes a great gift. And for Talk North listeners, they will have access to Black Friday pricing for all of November. So check them out for yourself. Stretch Labs throughout the Twin City area. Hey, Rosie here for Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than my good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they have got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to LexusofWayzata.com or LexusofMaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today. And welcome back to Rosen Sports Monday with the one and only Dan Cole, the common man, joining me in studio here. It's a blast for me to have Dan here, as many years as we've spent together and at each other's throats many times to get Rosie going. We'll talk about that in a minute. So how did you found this 12 to 3 slot? Chad Abbott's our wonderful program director. Mick Anselmo was the big boss for a while. Mm-hmm. We all like doing our Mick Anselmo impressions. Greg Swedberg, another big boss. Good people that knew how to run radio. And did you find your niche? Or was it like noon to 3 was going to be it?
Well, at first it was 6 to 9 at night, and then eventually I can't even recall exactly how it morphed into a daytime job. But what happened was, for the longest time, I moved to 1 to 3. I was doing 1 to 3. Then I would continue to board op and do updates and be sidekick on the Chad Burrow Show 3 to 6. And I would do another hour, 6 to 7. We called it Common After Dark or Common Unplugged. And then eventually, it's a really good story. I'll tell it really quickly as I can. So Hartman is with the Wolves. He's out of town. So Barrero's doing the show by himself. He has a guest come on. So when a guest comes on, I kind of check out, as you might imagine. Well, the way our equipment was set up, there was a button you had to pull out, or anybody that was a guest on a telephone, you had to turn a button on or off. If you didn't take it to turn it off, if there was a guest on the phone, he could hear the closed circuit network feeds, right? So I leave the studio and I forget to take
oh my God.
I forget to take the button out. So Barrero's got some guy on, some author or something. And the guy's going, Dan, I keep hearing another voice in my So Barrero has to shut down the interview, go to break.
Right.
I just happened to be coming back to the studio. He comes out and goes, get in that chair and stay in that chair. Right. I'll find somebody who will. And I go, you can't talk to me that way. Well, I went back in there, and then after the show, I apologized. He apologized, and he didn't need to. I should not have been out of the studio.
Yeah.
And then he said, he goes, Chad and I have actually talked about this a little bit. He goes, it doesn't seem like you're as engaged as you once were. It doesn't seem like you really want to be on the show anymore. Is that true? I go, come to think of it, yeah, I probably don't. So then I just had which was kind of nice because, a 6-hour day. Now I just had a 2-hour show. So I went from working 6 hours a day to a 2-hour show. And I did 1 to 3 for the longest time. And the reason I started at 1 is because Jesse, the Body Ventura, was doing 10 to 1 before he had to leave the air to run for governor.
As soon as he announced he had to get off the air. So, that started PA.
So that was the shift. It was, they did, I think Yates went until 9 or till 10. And then it was Ventura 10 to 1. I was 1 to 3. Then it was Chad Burrow. And then after a while, it it morphed into noon to 3, and it's been that way now for, I bet, 10, 12 years.
What would have happened had Jesse lost, as expected that he would have, and he ends up winning? I think the plan was, I remember running into him at the state fair. He was going to come back to the station.
I think he would have come back to the station, and then they probably would have fired me and hired PA and Dubé. No, I don't know. I don't know if PA and Dubé would have had a show then, or if they would have moved him to the evenings, or what they would have done, or made more room. But yeah,
because Jesse was doing well, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, Jesse did a nice job. Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly what his ratings were, but I'm sure they were good. People loved him. I mean, he's the character. So yeah. But when he won the election, then it went PA and Dubé, and that because they were filling in until they figured till the election ended, and they got the job full.
Never forget that day. What a shocker! So you start doing this show 12 to 3. Chad Abbott was a producer at that time.
He was executive producer of the radio station. The program director was Doug Westerman.
So, Pops. Did Pops or someone else sit down with you and say, this is the kind of show we want? No. Or is it just leaving it in your hands?
That's the way. It's been.
How do you come up with a format like this being you?
It has been, it's a hands-off approach by management. I mean, again, if the ratings weren't there, I'm sure they would say something, but the ratings have been good. We bring in endorsement money to the radio station through, with clients. But no, they've never told me. Oh, they'll chide me a little bit, like, you might want to come in a little early and prep for your show. But, I do the bit where I talk about the esoteric approach, and I don't prep. But I really, I prep. I read the the game, the recaps of all the games. I take a look at those, but I don't spend a lot of time putting it together. I talk about being a radio gardener rather than an architect, because when I try to plan it out segment by segment, say, I'm going to do this noon to 12:15, then 12:15 to 12:30. It just doesn't work for me. I feel like then I'm stuck in something that's too formatic and too cookie cutter. I'd like to be able to just bounce around. I mean, I have an idea of what I want to talk about that day, but it's not planned out really at all.
It took a long time. And we used to get this at CCO all the time, where consultants would come in and say, well, work with this person and that person. I remember my dear friend Don Shelby would say, a consultant would ask him, well, what's your secret? We want to take it to other stations. And he'd say, well, we like each other. We get along with each other. And I'm thinking, well, you can't create chemistry. You can't manufacture it. And you look at the lineup and what KFAN has morphed into after all these years, and the difference of personalities and shows, from the Power Trip to PA to you to Barrero to everything else that goes on. There could not be more of a difference in personalities and the way a show. It's not like a ESPN Sports.
Right.
You don't know who the hell you're listening to. Well, you're just regurgitating everything that happened. Not there's anything wrong with that, but that's a different way of looking at it.
You mentioned Chad Abbott. He's now the program director of KFAN and K-Talk, and he's highly regarded in iHeart across the country because of the success that the fan has had. And he will consult with other sports talk stations in our company, and they'll go, how come this isn't working for our show here and this and that? And Chad will listen to a little bit, and they're spending an hour and a half breaking down the middle relief of the Miami, whatever they are, Marlins.
Right.
And he says, well, that's your problem. He says, everybody comes to the radio station because of sports, and that's why they're there. And you have to talk sports. You can't ignore it, but they like a blend. They know only hardcore baseball fans want to talk an hour and a half of the Twins middle relief, which we don't even have anymore. We traded all the middle relief, but you know what I'm saying? Only hardcore fans, you turn off of those. So you have to have a blend of sports and just, I guess for lack of a better term, guy talk. And I think that's what endears people to our station.
But I think common as well, in this day and age of how impersonal it is, I'm holding my telephone in front of me here, and how we are all attached to our devices. Do you think the kind of radio that you do and other people do is even more important today, because people expect you to spar with me, to you and Brandon Molesky, your wonderful producer who's been with you for a long time.
20 years.
They want that familiarity. They want that feeling like, these are my buddies. These are people I want to hang out with. And you can't get that from your damn telephone.
No, that's
really a big thing.
That's been, I think that's been kind of, if you want to call it the secret forever, you have to, I always talk about, sort of like the old Cheers. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they know who we are and what we like, what we think. The listeners become familiar to you as well through either email or particularly now we have, text messaging
Right.
in the booth. So yeah, you get to know people. And it is, they actually start to think that they know, or they do know you. They start, because all of us, I think, also talk about our personal life a little bit. We don't, you don't open every closet with a skeleton in it, but you talk about where you've been, where you're going, where you're at. I think people appreciate that.
Today's a perfect example. You could literally open the phone lines the moment you walk in at noon and take nothing but Viking calls for 3 hours, and people would be pissed off at J.J. McCarthy. They'd be pissed off at KOC for they didn't run the ball enough. They didn't do this enough. But you choose to not really do that, even on a regular basis. You don't take a lot of phone calls.
I think the whole
except from some of the regulars that we have.
No, it's sort of sports talk radio has changed. I think originally, that's what it was. It was basically call driven. When I first started, I had a call driven show. Mine was like a party line. That's where the moniker thing started, where you had, Steelers guy and officiating guy and Bill Bates guy and vomit guy and all the other people, right? And that was part of the Cheers thing. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. They don't know Jim from St. Louis Park, but they know vomit guy, right? I mean, how many gyms in St. Louis Park are there? So yeah, people, I think, but that after a while, the call thing is kind of, I think, I don't know how it is across the rest of the country, but I would bet we rarely take calls in any of the shows anymore. We just don't, because I think that's where we have talkback now, where
easier to do
which
that.
is better because then it's 30
seconds.
seconds and the person can say what they want. So yeah, at least here in Minneapolis at KFAN, sports talk is different. We don't take it, and it's not for discouraging calls. They just don't come in. I think people just would rather listen than participate.
Well, you've had a niche obviously when the weather's nice, which is 7 months a year, whatever it might be. You open up with your golf game, and that's become part of your shtick. Wheel of Topic,
because I don't do it intentionally.
It's amazing how it lands.
Well, it's weird,
golf game.
Yeah, it does, and so we give.
I keep waiting for to be Timberwolves win last night. Wild, the skate never ends on that. It always lands on Commons.
It's
golf
landed
game.
on Tennebee's golf game once or twice, but other than that, rarely does.
But you talk about it, and you got the yawn sound effect and everything else, but there's a comfort to it. Even for me, I'm listening to it and going, "Where'd you hit it on one?" And stuff like that wouldn't work in normal situations, but because people know you and they expect it from you, they're disappointed if you don't talk about your golf game.
My brother cut out a quote from, I think her name was Holly Hunter, actress, right?
Yeah, Broadcast News, one of my favorites.
And I think the quote, he saw it in like Variety or some interview she did. And she said, "Make what you do so nobody else can do it." And that is the key, because if you listen to sports talk radio across the country or any, especially sports talk, or maybe if it's news talk, you get a lot of people that don't have, for lack of a better term, a real strong personality. They just kind of talk sports, and there's no real attachment with the people. If you have a strong personality, I'll tell you what the program, the programming, the head of programming for ESPN one time, we went down to the Marconi Awards, Chad Abbott, myself, and Lisa Sanderson, who was our promotions director. Chad Abbott was trying to explain to him about my show. And the guy said, he goes, I know why the show works. He goes, "I have a theory. If you go into town, turn on a sports talk radio station and start listening, and you have no idea what they're talking about, that's the sign of a good show, because you have your inside jokes and you have your personalities that are strong with the listeners." And I think he's right. I think that's what people like to be on the inside. And so we have, like, for instance, as you know, we'll play a piece of bumper music from John Mellencamp, and I'll identify it as Tom Petty. Somebody will call in and they'll go, "Hey, Common, I think you're wrong about that." Well, the other listeners know what I'm doing. They know that I'm reeling them in. And then we'll hit the fishing sound effect. It's Ron Shera, by the way, that's on the fishing sound effect.
Is it really? I never knew that.
And then we have a splash because we throw them back. I always say, "How tall are you and how much do you weigh?" And the guy's caught off guard. He goes, "I'm 6'2", 250. And then we hit the splash sound effect. We're fishing. It's a fishing expedition. So that's just one bit, the kind of bits that people like to be a part of. They're on the inside.
I worked with you long enough to remember when you were pro stadium and anti-kids. I think it was. And I thought, there's no way in hell Common's ever going to, want to, you got, it's a personal.
Well, here's what it was there was, I don't remember who the politician was, but somebody in town said, they said, if you're if you're for stadiums, you're against kids, which is preposterous, right? I mean, you can be for both. So for the longest time, I said I was pro stadium and against kids, and I said I was for kids and against stadiums. Then I was for both, and then I was against both. It was just part of a bit to do.
But you, listen, I know your boys know Deuce a little bit more than baby brother Pete, but man, they got to be the light in your eyes. I mean, I've watched them grow up, and I get to deal with see Deuce a lot more. But did you ever imagine how cool this adventure would be, being a parent back in your Haight-Ashbury days?
It's interesting. My lovely wife Potato, almost 10 years younger than me. And when you first meet and you start talking about, do you want to have a family or not? Right. I think she did, I didn't. And I did, she didn't. And then we both didn't. And then finally she said, I think I'd like to have a family. And I was like, You're getting up there. When Deuce was born, I was 44.
No, that's not bad.
Baby brother Peter, I was 46. But it was the best decision we've ever made. There's nothing more important to me than my wife and my two children. Yeah. Deuce and baby brother Peter.
They're great.
So
they're great young men is what they are.
Well, thank you.
And, going to college and doing all the things that they're doing and the success they're having. And Deuce is a natural. He could probably end up doing your job.
He's doing a lot of play-by-play.
I know he is.
For one of those. But
he's got a real job, too.
He's got a real job. But, he's doing some high school play-by-play. It's pretty cool.
It's very cool. So, you're going to talk about the Vikings today. We talk about it every day and in season. How do you gauge the psyche of Minnesota sports fans? And we talk about it a lot. We love talking baseball, though the Twins have been a disaster off the field as much as on the field. The Vikings rule this town. Obviously, they're the bread and butter for the KFAN radio audience, iHeart, everything about it. But they have such how do you deal with Viking fans on a day like this?
What you gauge is most of us that were attracted to sports talk radio were originally sports fans and maybe still are. You and I have talked about this. I don't live, eat, breathe, drink sports like I used to when I was much younger. The wins and losses kind of run together and I don't care as much, but I do it for a living. So for me, I don't get too high or too low on wins or losses. And you have so many different kinds of fans. You have some that are really into it, the hardcore, and then they get annoyed if you make fun of the team when they lose, or then you have the ones that are so into it and they get so angry. You see it on Twitter and on social everywhere where they, bench the players, fire the coach, do this and do that. So you kind of just get a feel for how people are. And that most of the listenership is attracted to sports. They're fans of the local teams and they get disappointed to even angry if the teams aren't doing well. So it's not too hard to gauge how they're feeling after a game like yesterday. McCarthy was hot and cold. He was more cold than he was hot. And so it's not too hard to figure out how the fans are going to feel.
Well, listen, after you've said it 1,000 times, once you slap big Blackjack Morris on the back after Game 7 of the greatest World Series, pretty hard to top that.
I ran into Blackjack. This is 7-8 years ago. His second marriage, he has younger kids. He had a boy 1 year younger than baby brother Peter. Baby brother Peter played basketball from third grade through a senior in school. So this was over at Hastings High School. It was a traveling basketball tournament, and Blackjack's boy played. And I saw Blackjack standing up on the running track watching the game. So I went up to him and I said, "Hey, Blackjack, Dan Cole from KFAN." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, I've listened to you before. I know who you are." And I go, "You ruined it for me." He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, I was at Game 7, 1991. It's the greatest sporting event in the history of sports as far as I'm concerned. So now every game I attend or watch, it pales in comparison." And he paused and he goes, "I can understand that." That's what he actually said. So yeah, you're right. Once you've seen the grace, if you're just watching a regular season game, regardless of the sport, for me, it's harder to get all worked.
Well, and I will say this, and I remember Jack was on my show. One of my favorite Sports Sunday shows with Jack, Isaiah, J.R. Ryder, and Warren Moon. And Jack Morris, remember, looked in the camera and said, "If I could give anything to the fans out there, I would give them the feeling that I had in Game 7 of the 91." And he had tears in his eyes. It was that real to him. Hey, listen, I know you got to get going. I got to get going for your show. But before you do, you're going to keep doing. Are you going to keep doing this for a while? I mean, you want to?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, you want to milk this as long as you possibly can. I hope so, because I want to keep going. I got my birthday this week, and I'm turning,
Shift is
feeling
short,
better
money's
than
good. What else am I going to do? I tell people it's 3 hours a day. What would I do for those 3 hours a day? What most retirees do. I would play bingo and take a nap. Well, that doesn't pay any money. So yeah, I'm going to keep, I just signed a new 3-year deal.
Good.
So I'm going to work till I'm 70, and then at the end we'll kind of revisit.
And you're going to keep ripping me, I suppose.
Oh, can't wait to get you going. I'm going to take cheap shots at you right away today.
Sure you are.
It's best when you're not there, so you can't defend yourself.
I know it. I hear it all the time, but you know what? It's all good.
It is.
And listen, man, I appreciate you stopping by.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's been
always good to
great
see you.
talking to the one and only Dan Cole, the common man, noon to 3 every weekday on KFAN. Thanks for listening to another edition of Rosen Sports Monday.